Hey everyone, welcome to Dollar Games, and today I'm going to save you from a terrible fate. One that's claimed countless hours of my life and the lives of many before me. So today I'm going to talk about JRPGs. And I know that you might think that they're harmless games filled with cool battles, deep stories, and unforgettable characters, but you'd be wrong. JRPGs are a menace, and I'm here to tell you why. These games have a way of sinking their claws into you. It starts small, like a casual playthrough of Persona 5 or a quick revisit to Chrono Trigger, but before you know it, you're knee deep in spreadsheets tracking side quests, and you're debating the finer points of turn based battle versus action combat. And what was once a simple hobby has now turned into a full time commitment. And don't think you can just casually enjoy one and just move on. Absolutely not. JRPGs demand your full devotion. They require you to memorize convoluted plot lines, learn battle mechanics that feel like advanced calculus, and get emotionally invested in characters who will absolutely destroy you in the final act. And with that, let's get started. Let's start with the obvious problem. These games have the audacity to tell stories that are too engaging. Why would I want to spend 80 plus hours in a game where the characters actually grow and the plot twists hit like a truck, and I start actually caring about fictional people more than the real ones? Unacceptable. I mean, the nerve of something like Final Fantasy VII Remake making me actually feel emotions. And don't even get me started on the Trail series, where the world building is so good I accidentally memorized the geopolitics of Zemuria instead of the world I live in. It's unfair that these games put so much effort into world building. They make sure that even side characters have full-fledged backstories, and somehow those backstories manage to be more compelling than the main plot of other games. Xenoblade Chronicles, for example, doesn't just give you a world, it makes you feel like you've lived in it. Every NPC has something meaningful to say, and every region is steeped in its own history and conflicts. Then there's the emotional blackmail. JRPGs don't just tell you a story, they grab your heart, stomp on it, and hand it back to you with a smile. Whether it's the tragic past of Persona 5's Phantom Thieves, the devastating choices in Nier Automata, or the friendships in Dragon Quest XI that you never wanted to end, these games make sure you're emotionally wrecked by the time the credits roll. And let's not forget the pacing. These stories aren't just good, they're meticulously crafted to keep you hooked. Just when you think you've reached a lull, they hit you with a revelation that changes everything. Like, oh, that character you've been traveling with for 40 hours, turns out they're a villain. Or worse, they're about to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And don't get me started on endings. Some of them leave you staring at the screen for hours, wondering how you're supposed to move on with your life now that it's over. Honestly, it's exhausting. These games don't just want you to play them, they want you to live them. They demand your attention, your empathy, and your tears. The worst part? You'll gladly give it to them, because once you've experienced a story this good, nothing else compares. So yeah, JRPGs are a problem, but they're the kind of problem you'll happily spend the rest of your life trying to solve. Now, if you thought the storytelling was bad enough, the combat is just as insidious. It's like you couldn't pick just one way to ruin our lives, so they gave us options. Do you like thinking 10 steps ahead in a tactical JRPG? Boom, Fire Emblem has you covered. Want flashy real-time action? Here's Ys, or Kingdom Hearts. Maybe you enjoy good old-fashioned turn-based battles with deep mechanics. Here's Persona, Octopath Traveler, and the Trail series. Why would they make battles so fun that I voluntarily grind for hours just to get that one overpowered ability? And it's not just about the battles themselves, it's about the strategy. JRPG combat forces you to think, to optimize, and to experiment with different party compositions and ability loadouts. Final Fantasy's job system alone can keep you engaged for hours, making sure that you have the perfect build for every boss fight. It's exhausting, but also in the best possible way. Then there's the infamous grind. We tell ourselves we won't do it, that we'll just play through this normally. But one minute you're progressing through the story, and the next you've spent 5 hours hunting metal slimes in Dragon Quest just to hit max level before the final boss. Why? Because you just hate yourself. But also, The combat is just that satisfying. And let's not forget the sheer variety. Just when you think you've mastered one system, another game comes along and flips the script. Shin Megami Tensei punishes you for not exploiting enemy weaknesses, while Bravely Default lets you break the game with its Brave and Default mechanics. And don't get me started on the satisfaction of pulling off a perfectly timed combo in Tales of Arise, or landing a critical hit in Chrono Trigger. These games don't just want you to win, they want you to feel like a genius while you're doing it. Worst of all, the combat systems are designed to keep you coming back. Post-game super bosses, New Game Plus with harder difficulties and hidden challenges ensure that even after the credits roll, you're still itching for one more fight. It's a trap, really. You think you're just going to play a game, but before you know it, you're theory crafting builds at 2 a.m. and debating online about the best party setup. JRPG combat isn't just addicting, it's a lifestyle, and once you're hooked, there's no escape. Let's not ignore another major issue. These games keep hiring top-tier composers to create soundtracks that take up permanent residence in your brain. Nobuo Uematsu, Yasunori Mitsuda, and Falcom Sound Team, just to name a few. Like, why does Persona 5 have a battle theme so good that I refuse to escape fights because I just want to hear Last Surprise one more time? It's a crime. And don't even talk to me about Xenoblade Chronicles field themes. I should not feel this inspired while running around a digital landscape. The worst part, the music doesn't leave you alone. You could be going about your day, minding your own business, and suddenly the opening notes of One Winged Angel creeps into your mind. Next thing you know, you're humming along to the battle theme of the game you haven't played in years. It's a form of auditory possession. And then when you think you've escaped, they've released orchestral concerts. That's right. These game companies know exactly what they're doing, releasing fully orchestrated albums that make you feel like you're reliving your entire journey all over again. The emotional manipulation is real, but it's not just the big bombastic tracks that get you. It's the quiet moments too. The somber piano piece that plays during a character's tragic backstory, the hopeful melody that accompanies a sunrise after a long night of despair, or the whimsical tune that makes you feel like you're home in a cozy village. These composers know how to weaponize nostalgia and emotion, and they're not afraid to use it. You'll find yourself tearing up at the sound of a single violin, and you won't even know why. And let's not forget the remixes and rearrangements. Just when you think you've moved on, someone drops some sort of jazz version of Final Fantasy VII battle theme, or a rock cover of Chrono Trigger's frog theme. Suddenly you're digging back into the soundtrack, rediscovering tracks that you've forgotten about, and falling in love all over again. It's a never-ending cycle of musical obsession, and honestly, we're all better for it. But still, can we get a break? Just one day without a JRPG earworm? No? Okay, fine. You know what's really unfair? The sheer number of great JRPGs out there. I was just minding my own business, trying to catch up on the old backlog, and then boom, a new Final Fantasy, then a new Shin Megami Tensei, then another Trails game because Falcom doesn't believe in breaks. There's always another 100-hour adventure waiting, and my free time is in complete shambles. Meanwhile, my friends who play normal, sane games like Call of Duty can just drop in and out without needing to know the political struggles of an entire fictional continent. It must be nice. It's not just the big franchises either. Indie developers have gotten into the act too, releasing absolute gems like Sea of Stars or Chained Echoes, making sure that even if you somehow manage to finish a big-name JRPG, there's still more waiting. You will never be free. And let's not forget remakes and remasters. Just when you think you can move on, Square Enix or Atlas decides to remake a classic, making sure you have to replay it all over again, but this time in HD. It's a never-ending cycle. And to make things worse, the JRPG community is relentless. You can't even mention your backlog without someone chiming in with, "Oh, you haven't played that yet? It's a masterpiece." And then suddenly you're adding yet another game to your list, even though you're already drowning in side quests and post-game content. And don't get me started on the FOMO. When a limited edition physical release drops, now you're not just playing the game, you're also hunting down collector's editions and soundtracks. It's a lifestyle, not a hobby. Honestly, It's a miracle any of us finish anything. Between the sprawling narratives, the endless grinding, and the constant stream of new releases, it feels like the genre is actively conspiring against us. But here's the thing. We love it. We complain, but we wouldn't have it any other way. After all, what's life without a little chaos? Just, maybe let me finish this one game before the next Daybreak game drops? Okay. Oh, you thought you could just stick to the main story? Think again. JRPGs have a sneaky way of throwing side quests at you that are somehow just as compelling as the main plot. You set out to save the world, but the next thing you know, you're spending hours helping NPCs reunite with lost family members or uncovering hidden lore about the world. Games like The Witcher may get credit for their immersive side content, but JRPGs have been doing this for decades. Trails in the Sky makes every side quest deepen the world. Yakuza Like a Dragon fills its city with bizarre yet heartfelt encounters. And Xenoblade Chronicles' affinity system turns NPCs into actual people you care about. And let's be real, you tell yourself you're going to ignore side quests this time, you'll focus on that main story, but the moment a character hints at a hidden secret, you're off on a 10-hour detour that leads to an ultimate weapon you'll probably never even need. Worse yet, these side quests often come with emotional stakes that make them impossible to ignore. Sure, you could skip that quest about the old man searching for his missing granddaughter, and then you'd miss out on a whole heartwarming reunion, and the guilt of leaving him hanging would haunt you for the rest of the game. Now, JRPGs know exactly how to manipulate your sense of responsibility, making you feel like the fate of every random villager rests squarely on your shoulders. And don't even get me started on the rewards. These games dangle the juiciest carrots in front of you. Exclusive gear, rare items, and even entire story arcs that expand the lore. You tell yourself you'll do one or two, but before you know it, you've spent an entire weekend chasing down every last quest marker. It's a trap, but it's a trap you'll happily walk into every time. After all, who needs a main story when the side quests are this good? Another issue with JRPGs is that they insist on looking absolutely stunning. Whether it's hand-drawn charm of the games like Ni no Kuni, the HD 2D brilliance of Octopath Traveler, or the hyper-stylized cyberpunk vibes of The World Ends With You, these games refuse to settle on mediocrity. Even older games with their pixel art still manage to hold up because the art direction is just that good. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, and Suikoden 2 all have sprites that still look fantastic today, while modern titles like Dragon Quest XI and Persona 5 push the boundaries of stylish presentation. The real problem? It's the sheer variety. JRPGs can be bright and colorful, dark and gritty, or anything in between. There's no escaping their beauty, and once you start appreciating the art, every other game starts to look a little dull. It's not just about the visuals though, it's how the art styles enhance the storytelling. A game like Persona 5 uses its bold, comic book inspired aesthetic to make every menu and battle feel like a rebellious act. Meanwhile, the serene watercolor landscapes of Ni no Kuni make you feel like you're stepping into a living Studio Ghibli film. These games don't just look good, they use their art to pull you deeper into their worlds, making it impossible to resist their charm. Honestly, it's unfair how much effort goes into making these games look so good. You start playing one and suddenly you're spending hours just wandering around, taking screenshots, and admiring the scenery. And don't even get me started on the character designs. Every protagonist, villain, and NPC looks like they stepped out of a concept art book. It's like the developers are showing off, and honestly, they've earned every right. But still, can they give the rest of the gaming industry a chance to catch up? Finally, the biggest issue. JRPGs demand full, unwavering commitment. You think you're just going to play for an hour? Good luck with that. These games are built to pull you into their worlds for the long haul, and epic adventures that can take 50, 80, even 100 hours to complete. And it's not just the length, it's the sheer amount of content. New Game Plus, hidden dungeons, ultimate bosses, multiple endings. JRPGs don't just end when the credits roll. They linger, daring you to dive back in for another playthrough. So, if you value your time, your sleep schedule, and your ability to focus on anything else, stay far, far away from JRPGs. Otherwise, you might just find yourself falling in love with them. And let's talk about the emotional investment. These games don't just want your time, they want your heart. You'll spend hours bonding with characters only to have your soul crushed when they face tragedy or sacrifice themselves for the greater good. By the time you reach the final boss, you're not just fighting to save the world, you're fighting for the friends that you've made along the way. It's exhausting, but in the best possible way. Worst of all, JRPGs have a way of making you feel guilty for not giving them your all. That side quest you skipped, it probably had a heartfelt story. The optional boss you ignored, it drops the best loot in the game. These games are designed to make you feel like you've missed out if you don't give them 110%. And yet, despite the time sink, the emotional toll, and the sheer audacity of the demands, we keep coming back. Because when a JRPG clicks, there's nothing else like it. Just don't blame me when you lose track of an entire weekend grinding for that ultimate weapon. Now, in the end, it's absolutely clear that JRPGs are the absolute worst at making you live a normal life, though. Now, if you're not careful, like me, they'll steal your time, your emotion, and your sanity. But hey, if you're already too far gone like me, welcome to the club. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another 100+ hour game to finish. And if you liked that video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, and let me know in the comments how JRPGs are ruining your life.